So now on to pitching wins above replacement. We've covered the various introductory aspects of positional player wins above replacement, but pitchers are different. And let's cover some concepts around pitching WAR. A lot of the technique is similar in terms of measuring wins above replacement. You're going to try to get it runs first, just like we did with the positional players. And we try to get to average and then readjust later to replacement level. So we're going to look at the components of pitching that lead to runs and then convert those runs to replacement level runs and then to wins to get pitcher WAR. So it's all about runs, and this formula here is the sort of basic idea. You start with runs against by the replacement level pitcher. So think of that AAA pitcher that can come up anytime and how many runs allowed they would have per 9 innings. And whatever that number looks like, let's call it 5 for example, you subtract from the major league pitcher their runs allowed. So maybe you've got a pitcher that's got like 3 runs allowed. So the difference there is 2 runs allowed per 9 innings. And then you're going to convert that into runs per win. So you're going to get to wins by looking at the runs allowed. You've got to think about runs for pitchers, how you do that well. But you start with the replacement level variation. So this is a general formula to think about as we try to understand more pitcher WAR. Now there's problems with this basic idea. You probably thought of 3 or 4 as I was just saying that little snippet. Again, what is replacement level? What does that look like? And this is actually very different for starters versus relievers. The same way we looked at positional adjustments for position players, we can look at this transition between starters and relievers and how they perform. Starting is more difficult because as starters convert to relievers, they actually perform much better. And as relievers convert to starters, they don't perform as well. So there's a different replacement level for both starters and relievers. And that's an important concept that we're going to discuss when we talk about pitching WAR, how we do that. The other concept is runs per win for a pitcher. Now we have a pretty standard rule of thumb about runs per win in baseball. We say, oh, it's about 10. But the key thing here is that the pitcher themselves controls the run scoring environment. And when you change the run scoring environment, you change the runs per win. So if you have a lights out pitcher, Pedro Martinez in his heyday, his runs per win is very different than a replacement pitcher's runs per win. Because you don't need as many runs to win when Pedro is pitching for your team. So fundamentally, runs per win is a moving target based on pitching skill. And this causes a complexity trying to measure pitcher WAR. So every pitcher sets their own runs per win based on some measure of talent, some measure of skill. And as you run the gamut from the best to the worst in terms of skill, you vary the runs per win from replacement level all the way to the best in the league. Now the other component you probably thought of as you saw runs allowed per 9 when considering replacement level is that we talked about this in Module 4 when we discussed pitching. A lot of metrics that measure pitching also are measuring the defense, the defensive ability of the positional players behind that pitcher. So that led to defensive independent measures of pitching performance. So runs allowed is probably not the real starting place. We have to get to more defensive independent types of measurements to really get at pitcher WAR.